My husband is 29, has 3 kids under 3, and one promise that should never have been forgotten. One weekend, he walked into the kitchen. Puppy eyes, voice soft. "Can you watch the kids for me? Just this weekend, there's a bachelor party." Sounds harmless, right? But behind that question was a quiet, simmering argument about boundaries, responsibility, and hurt. I said no. He was disappointed. And now I'm wondering, was I too harsh for sticking to the promise we made from the start? When Dan and I met 4 years ago, everything between us was pretty straightforward. He was honest from the beginning. He had 3 kids with his ex-wife. In me, I never wanted to be a mom. Still, I felt okay with it. I told him clearly I wasn't planning on having kids. And I wasn't interested in being a stepmother. Not because I hate children. I like them, from a safe distance. I can play, laugh, enjoy them for a while, then hand them back to whoever's in charge. Dan understood that. He looked at me, smiled, and said, "I'm not looking for a mom for my kids. They have a mom. I'm looking for a wife, for me." That one sentence gave me enough peace to keep going with the relationship. Dan made me believe I could love him without crossing my own boundaries. I didn't have to step into the role of mother to his 3 little ones. I didn't have to sacrifice my personal life, routines, or freedom to become the selfless woman for a family I didn't build. We agreed on that early. And throughout our dating years, he kept his word. Back then, Dan only had the kids on weekends. He handled everything himself. The kids came over, he took care of them. Sometimes I'd go out. If I stayed home, I might say hi or hang out briefly. But I was never pulled into any responsibility. He even hired his niece to babysit when he needed to step out. Not once did I feel cornered or guilted into parenting duties. He kept that promise, and I respected him even more for it. We got married after 2 years. Life stayed balanced. The rules were still clear. I was his wife, not a babysitter, not a full-time stepmom. My relationship with the kids stayed warm but distant. I was an adult they felt safe around, no pressure, no commands. I never tried to replace their mom, a role I knew was sensitive and already filled. And because of that clarity, when Dan walked into the room that day and asked me to watch the kids so he could go to a bachelor party, something felt off. Not because I was selfish, not because I didn't love him, but because I realized he was forgetting the promise that had once built the foundation of us. We both knew the weekend-only custody arrangement wouldn't last forever. The kids would grow, their needs would shift, and both Dan and his ex-wife wanted a more balanced split. So when custody moved to 50-50 last year, I didn't object. Honestly, I thought it was fair. 1 week with mom, 1 week with dad. Each parent got alone time, and the kids got more structure. In theory, a great solution. But theory doesn't always account for reality. The kids, all 3, are currently in the chaos of toddlerhood. And because they're so close in age, it's non-stop. One cries, one whines, one tests limits. These aren't the kind of kids you sit in front of a TV and hope for the best. No, they're tiny tornadoes, so intense that even professional sitters might think twice. Dan tried. He hired his niece to help during his custody weeks. She was young, energetic, and affordable. Things worked, temporarily. But then, life shifted. Dan lost his job during a round of layoffs. The company restructured, and suddenly, he was unemployed in a shaky economy. Thankfully, he landed a new job soon after, but the salary was half of what he made before. The niece? Off to college, no longer available. And the custody weeks turned into pure exhaustion. Dan was tired, bags under his eyes, always tense. I felt for him, I really did, but I couldn't suddenly become the stand-in caregiver. That was never my role, and changing circumstances don't automatically rewrite old agreements. We could talk, we could reassess, but not like this, not a one-sided shift in expectations. Dan didn't say much at first. He pushed through, but I could see it, day by day, the toll the pressure was taking on him. Then came that last-minute request. "Can you watch the kids this weekend?" And I knew he wasn't just asking. He was trying to pull me into a responsibility I'd never agreed to take on. It was a Thursday evening. Dan walked out of his office, holding a cold coffee, eyes red from lack of sleep. He stood in the kitchen doorway for a long time before speaking. "Do you have plans this weekend?" His voice was softer than usual. I looked up, a little suspicious. The question wasn't odd, but the way he asked it was. "Yeah," I replied. "Saturday morning I'm going to the gym. Then lunch with my mom. Might read at home in the afternoon." "Why?" Dan gave a sheepish smile. "I just remembered, Alex's bachelor party is this weekend. I'm a groomsman. Everyone's going. I thought I had childcare covered. But now there's no one. I was hoping you could help. Just 2 days. I'll be back Sunday night." I froze. Not at the request, I saw it coming. But at how casually he said it. Like this was something I'd just of course agree to. I put the knife down. "Dan, I can't. I already have plans. And I've told you from the start, I don't do childcare unless it's an emergency." He looked surprised, then slightly annoyed. "I just thought you'd be a little flexible. I mean, that was just a promise we made a long time ago. Right? Things have changed." "No," I said, calm but firm. "Things changed for you, not for me. I was clear from the beginning. And you agreed. I don't want to be put in a position where I have to choose between my personal life and someone else's children. This isn't an emergency. You want to go drink. Maybe watch strippers dance with your friends. That's not a good enough reason for me to cancel my weekend and watch 3 toddlers." Dan was quiet. I knew he was disappointed. And I understood. But I was disappointed too, in him. He knew who I was. From start to now. And now, when things got hard, he expected me to be flexible, which really meant carry a load that was never mine. I didn't say no out of selfishness. I said no because I respect my own boundaries. I said no because I once said no to being a mother, not because I couldn't. But because I didn't want to live a life I never chose. Loving someone doesn't mean becoming someone else to please them. And sometimes, holding onto a promise you made to yourself makes others think you're heartless. Some might say, if you really love someone, you should sacrifice, adapt, empathize. But I don't believe love means giving up who you are to fill a role you never wanted. I love Dan, but I also love myself, and I know who I am. What I want, and what I can't endure. I've seen too many people, especially women, slip into the trap of naturally taking over. They enter relationships with stepkids. No pressure at first, but eventually become unpaid babysitters, substitute moms, silent sacrificers, and over time, they forget where choice ends and obligation begins. I don't want to be one of them. So I drew a line, not with words, but with consistent actions. I don't interfere with parenting. I don't comment on Dan's discipline style or their meals. I don't try to parent. Instead, I build a relationship based on kindness and respect. I cook for the kids when I want. Sometimes I take them to the park or buy them ice cream. I cheer for them at soccer games. Take pictures, clap, then head home. I don't attend parent-teacher meetings. I don't help plan pickups. I'm an adult in the house, but not a mom. And maybe that's why the kids like me. Because I don't pretend. I don't make them call me stepmom. I don't try to be a hero in their story. I'm just Dad's wife, a safe grown-up who doesn't control them. And strangely, that relationship lasts, because it was never forced. When Dan asked me to watch the kids for his bachelor weekend, I knew he was overwhelmed. But I also knew, if I said yes once, there'd be a second time. And if I said yes not because I wanted to, but because he expected me to, then the line between volunteering and obligation would blur fast. I don't blame Dan for asking. But I'm not wrong for saying no. A promise is a promise. And if he thought I would change just because life changed, maybe he never truly understood why I value boundaries so deeply. Dan didn't go to the bachelor party that weekend. He texted the groomsmen group chat, apologizing and saying he had family issues. I didn't ask details. He didn't offer them. The house was quiet that Friday night. Not angry, not cold, just quiet. Like two people standing on opposite sides of a line, unsure who should move first. Saturday morning, I went to the gym like planned. When I got home, Dan was playing blocks with the kids in the living room. He looked tired but smiled anyway. His voice was hoarse. I sat on the couch, watching the 3 of them. No blame, no bitterness, but I could feel the invisible distance between us, the kind that grows when someone holds their ground. That afternoon, while the kids napped, Dan joined me on the balcony. He didn't look at me right away, just stared at the quiet sky. "I'm not mad at you," he said after a long pause. "I just didn't think you still held on to that promise so tightly." I nodded. "I know, but I have to. Not because I don't love you, but because if I let myself get pulled into something I clearly said no to, I'll lose myself, and then I'll resent you and me." Dan sighed. A tired, quiet sigh, part exhaustion, part acceptance. "I just wish it were easier." I gave a small smile. "Having kids was never easy. You knew that before you met me." We didn't say anything else. I think he understood, or at least, he's trying to. I may not be the ideal wife in everyone's eyes. I didn't say yes just to make him happy. But I didn't abandon him either. I'm here, in my way, supporting him as a wife, not as a replacement parent. I don't feel guilty. I feel relieved, for keeping my boundary intact. For not letting a temporary problem dismantle a lifelong promise I made to myself. Loving someone with kids is a big choice. But there's a difference between loving someone with kids and becoming a parent to their kids. I chose the first one. And I've never regretted it.